Hey guys, and welcome to Creatively Me with Bree. You guessed it, I'm Bree. Hi there, hello. And today we are going to go over how I made this owl pattern in the background. Now, if you are interested in learning how I made these owl designs, let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to do another tutorial. I did have a short where I shared one of the designs, one of the four that you see here, that you can of course go check out. But if you would like me to do a full tutorial, all you got to do is ask. In another one of my videos where I did make a seamless pattern, someone did ask why I did some of the steps that I did. And so I plan to explain why I chose the method that I did. There are a variety of different methods that you can use. I, of course, choose the one that's most workable and understandable for me. It has the least amount of steps and doesn't hurt my brain too hard. So some simple tips, tricks, suggestions, if I may, that I use in order to create patterns. Create one element that you really like. In this case, I really liked the single dark green leaf, and I duplicated it and moved it around and played what I like to call art Tetris. Once I had them all placed where I wanted, I merged them all into one layer. So that way all the dark leaves are on the same layer together. Then when I made this vine branch type thing, yeah, I know, super technical term. It's the slightly mid-green that I'm turning right there. Once I created it, I duplicated it, moved it around, did some art Tetris, and then I condensed all of them onto, or combined condensed, you know what I mean, onto one layer. Then I'm sure you've noticed by now, I chose similar like colors, sort of a mixture between analogous and monochromatic. Not perfectly, of course, but I can't say that it's 100% analogous, and I also can't say that it's 100% monochromatic colors, but kind of a combination between the two. I gotta be honest, it's gonna get awkward and maybe a little silent in a moment here because, well, I don't have much to say on the matter. I've sort of said what I needed to say about this part, but I'm going to reiterate some important notes. Make sure that you keep the same elements, like elements, on the same layers. Keep track of your layers. Don't be like me. I don't suggest you do it like me. Do as I say, not as I do, which means layer the layers. Make sure you label them. Label them. Don't hope you know which one's which. Don't do that. That's what I do. It usually doesn't work out for me. There's usually, confusion. And then just to review some of the tools that I'm consistently using throughout this, that little squiggly line that I just clicked on, yeah, that's like a select tool. You'll see me use freeform or freehand rather a lot because I will draw specifically around the element that I want to move and or copy. You can see at the bottom when you do freehand or automatic or square or ellipse sort of selection, that you can do copy and paste, and that's what I'm doing. I'm using copy and paste. I'm using the freehand select tool. You'll also notice that I clicked that little arrow at the top as well on the left hand side. And that is a transform tool. So depending on what I'm doing, I will oftentimes use the uniform transform tool, particularly at this point because I'm not looking to freeform, distort, or warp the elements that I'm working with. I'm just looking to move them around and rotate them without actually distorting their current shape or properties. Times where I might select the warp tool would be when I am in the creative process of the individual beginning elements. So when I made, for example, the leaf in the beginning, or I made the owls, if I don't like the shape before I go to duplicate the shape and, drag it all over this art piece, I make sure that everything sort of rests and sits exactly as I want before I go ahead and duplicate it and place it all over my art piece, all over that canvas. So, always make sure that before you jump into making the pattern that you like the pieces that you have created, because it's really difficult to undo and correct that afterwards. As of right now, at this point in my tutorials that I've been making, I do tend to use the ready available Procreate brushes. That does not mean that in the future I won't either make brushes of my own that people can use, or that I won't use some brushes that were created by other artists. But presently, I'm just using the already pre-made that come with the app Procreate brush sets. I do personally, it's a personal decision. I tend to like texture. So I really enjoy the charcoal brushes, and that does tend to be one of my go-to brush sets that I use for a lot of my pieces. But again, that's a personal choice. There's a lot of great brushes that are available out there that you can get on a bunch of variety of websites, and they're great. Of course, make sure that they're usable for more than free use, but commercial use as well. If you do plan on selling any of your products, always make sure that you check the licensing of the things that you purchase to use in your creations. Some other things that I would suggest while I am, trying to take up some of this time with talking until we get to the meat of the project where I go over how to make the pattern itself seamless. I just want to remind you to, if you can, make sure that you have a color palette picked before beginning. Now, if you have really strong skills with color theory and you're not afraid to take some risks and play around, great. Perfect. No problem. But if you are a perfectionist, if you are someone that gets caught up in making sure everything's just right, or you're worried about are the colors going to work, and then it sort of ends up becoming chaos in your pieces, that actually used to happen to me frequently. I realized that I actually needed to pre-plan my color palettes, because otherwise they would end up sort of in chaos, and the pieces would not come together the way that I envisioned them, and it became really frustrating and disheartening. What I will say though is, of course, it's okay to have the plan, but then also have flexibility. So I start with a palette, and sometimes I find that I just need to make slight variations to my palette as I go along. But just having a general idea of what that palette's going to look like is really helpful. So I'll be honest, this is a first time for me where I have actually made elements overlapping in my design. So I have in the background, as you can see, I'm drawing in some leaf designs. I know, surprising considering there's so many leaves already on this piece, but I normally make sure that every single one of my elements are their own individual pieces and they do not overlap, because that usually makes for much easier just creation and movement of the elements if I need to. And you'll see more of what I mean once we get into the seamless pattern portion. But I decided to take a risk for this one, and I'm pretty pleased with how it worked out. I was proud of myself for, even now as a seasoned artist, it's still hard not to lean on what we know how to do safely. But I'm glad I gave it a try. And it's encouraging for the future, the kind of patterns and designs I now will have more confidence in trying. So I know I said that we were halfway there, but then I decided to slow down this portion of the video down by about 50%. And that's because I wanted to be able to explain each of my steps thoroughly. So you're actually only 1/3 of the way. But hey, thanks for being here. So as you can see, I had all of the individual layers grouped together. I duplicated that group, and now I'm going to flatten it just so that way it's easier to work with and I don't have to worry about moving around the pieces or messing up those pieces, which is why we have all those pieces saved at the bottom. I added a layer on top, like a blank layer. Now I just filled it with green. I'm going to take the opacity down so that way I can see through it. I do this with a purpose. In a moment, I'm going to show you what happens. But essentially, when we grab just the elements without that top layer that's filled in, that green overlay, the selection doesn't make it all the way to the very border of the canvas. And so we actually would not be able to get a perfect seamless pattern. And here you can see that gap there. So we need in order to get a perfect seamless pattern, we need that line to go all the way to the edge of the canvas. Hence why I have that gradient layer over it, that or transparent layer over it, and why I group it together and duplicate it. because I'm going to do two different things with those layers. One of those layers is going to be dedicated from moving right to left, and the other is I will be doing left to right. I do want to make sure I have on the snapping feature so that I have my snapping and magnets on. And as you can see, it's like nicely moving along, showing you where all those special lines are so you can get it exactly where you want it. And the easiest way to do this is, which I messed up here, is to make sure that you zoom in so you can really see if you're lining it up and it's hitting that yellow line. When you get yellow lines, that means it's mathematically perfect, okay? And then you will want to take now the next layer, right? The other layer that was not used, the other group, and you're going to move from the left to the right, okay? Now, the way that you know if they've lined up perfectly, even if it looks like it, you always want to double check before you start, thinking everything's cool. You will either have a dark line that overlaps the gradient layer or the opacity layer. So I keep saying gradient. I don't know why, but the opacity transparent layer. And if they're not overlapping and there's a gap, you'll see the lighter color bleed through from the background, which is why we have the opacity. See how it has that light color? You would know they weren't lining up if that light color from behind the transparent layer wasn't covering. So now you can see it's perfectly covering. This is what it would look like if the gradients overlapped, right? So we would get that darker line. So that would let us know that it was not successful in perfectly lining up on the canvas. So I deleted the two overlay layers, and now I have those two remaining element layers that are now switched, right? We essentially flipped them from right to left, left to right. So here's what the original design looked like. And once we slid from right to left, left to right, this is what it now looks like. This now allows us to see if there are any spaces in the current pattern that might be feeling a bit naked or it just isn't well balanced. And so now this is an opportunity, where I point right there kind of shows you that's like a bald spot, if you will, in the design. And so now we'll be able to go in, grab elements that I think would fill in that space without making it seem like it wasn't naturally and intentionally already there. So I chose this small like leaf pattern, duplicated, copied it, and then I shifted it. I also have my snapping still on, so I go ahead and take that off because it's making it so that I can't organically move this piece around to where it fits best with the piece. When you zoom out, you can kind of tell like it's a little bit more filled out. And I see that like, okay, it needs to be shifted. I don't really see too many problems, just a couple more areas that need just a little bit of attention. But overall, I don't feel like the piece had too many awkward spaces. There definitely are some patterns that it will look really awkward depending on what kind of shapes you're working with. But I felt like this one actually came really nice together. Maybe it's because it's all natural elements, like all organic nature sort of shapes. Okay, when I have everything where I want it, I go ahead, repeat what I did before. I add a layer, I add a solid color. I'm going to take the opacity of it down. I'm going to group them. I'm going to duplicate that group. And then this time, instead of going from right to left and left to right, I'm actually going to go from top to bottom, bottom to top. I'm going to hit the select tool. I'm going to make sure that I have the snapping on, make sure I have both the magnets and snapping set, and then I am going to go ahead and pull the top to bottom and make sure that all those yellow lines show up for me, because otherwise it's not perfect. Because, it's funny that I need this part to be perfect when I have worked so hard to get over perfectionism. But in this particular instance, perfection actually matters. And I'm so sorry to say that. Now that I've moved from top to bottom, I'm going to grab the other grouped layers, and I'm going to move them up from bottom to top. And again, just be really mindful of making sure that you hit the points, that there's no overlap like that, or that they don't actually meet lines. The best way to sort of check this is zoom in like I do right here. And, you know, there's nothing that shows that it doesn't perfectly match up. Then I can zoom out and I can finally go and get rid of those overlay layers that are no longer needed. Keep saying overlay. I would say just like those transparent layers, you know, whatever you want to call them. Just the layers that aren't used anymore. And then I'm going to somehow combine them. And now I have a flattened final piece where I have, and I'm still struggling here to move it. It's quite funny to watch, actually. But you know, now this is the pattern now that everything's been moved around, right? So we've already done right to left, left to right, top to bottom, bottom to top. And now I can see where there might be some, you know, awkward open spaces that need a little bit of attention and, you know, maybe more equal distribution of certain colors or shapes. So as usual, I'm going to grab what elements I would like to see more of. And yeah, just play Art Tetris. So these ones in particular are ones that I'm going to hand draw in. The rest, if it was any of the leaf elements, those I would copy and paste, but I'm going to hand draw in these little circles, just because I feel like you needed hand drawn to sort of meet the exact space, because in a sense, they're sort of like tasteful space taker-uppers. And so as you can see here, I'm using the freehand tool to select the leaves. I'm copying it and I'm moving it. I am going to take off the magnets again in the snapping because it doesn't allow for organic movements. And yeah, I'm just going to move around wherever I sort of feel like there's some stuff missing. Yeah, I know, super exciting. I duplicated that layer and I'm moving stuff around. But as I've said before in other videos, it's important that you zoom out, zoom in, sometimes even taking a break from your piece. If you've been working on it longer than 30 minutes and you're starting to feel like I'm not seeing this as clearly as I know I could or should, or maybe I'm just hitting like artist block, it's okay to step away. It's okay to say, I do not feel like I am seeing my piece right now in a way that's helpful. That zooming in, zooming out really, really does sort of help us see things that we might have been missing before. And having a fresh pair of eyes never hurts. So, yeah, this is just me playing more Art Tetris. I know it's super exhilarating, guys. I live to make art just so exciting. Yeah. Oh man, yep, the awkward silence. And as I'm watching this, I don't even know if I feel like there's some really awkward spots that I'm seeing, and I'm like, I haven't watched this edited version in a while, and now I'm wondering, did I fill those spaces? Did I see the spaces I'm seeing now? Or am I only seeing them now because I stepped away from the project? We're about to find out, you and me both. We're going to find this out together, what I did. That was a wise choice. That bottom right corner, honestly, though, is killing me. I really hope for your guys' sake and my own that I did something with it because it's driving me crazy. Crazy. If I didn't do something with it, I am going to go do something after this video. Come on, see it. How is it I can see all these dots, but I can't see the awkward open area at that bottom corner? I don't understand. Also, I don't know if you guys can hear my kiddos in the background, but yeah, I got kids. They are expressive and loud. They're very cute, but also very loud. They're both. So, okay, so I did it. Okay, I acknowledged at least that one awkward area at the top. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen. What am I going to do here? so interesting watching this with you guys because I'll be honest, even though I did make this piece, I don't remember everything I did. And I only made it yesterday, so that tells you how good my working memory is. All right, okay, slightly better. Curious to know what I do to fill the awkward space that's still there, as well as the one at the bottom that's still there. Ah, this is painful. And again, I don't know if you guys can hear my little guy downstairs. He went to the beach today, and he's very tired and very cranky. So I don't want to apologize for him being a sound in the background. He's just being him and being a cutie pie. But just in case you're wondering why my kid sounds so distressed, he's okay. He's just very sleepy. He needs to go to bed soon. He just has to eat dinner. My hubby's taking care of that right now. Whew, he is unhappy. Okay, so again, I'm filling in these spots. I'm digging the spots, but I have that one space. Tell me I see it. Tell me I see it, because everything else looks okay-ish except that corner. Oh, please see it. Do something with it. Don't disappoint me. I think I'm about to be a disappointment. Come on, you can do this. You can do this. Maybe? Nope. Okay, I gave up. I'm so sorry, guys. Pretend that I filled in that bottom right corner. Pretend it with me. So I decided at this point, for God knows what reason, I was done with this piece. And so I copied it 4 times. So now that I have all my layers, I did make the 5th layer, the original, invisible. Now I'm going to make sure I have all my magnets and snapping, and I'm going to take each layer and move them into a separate corner. This one, I took the bottom corner and I slid it up to that opposite corner at the top left. I took that bottom left corner and I slid it up towards the right corner. Now I'm going to repeat that from the top right corner down to the left bottom corner and the top, left corner down to the right corner. And now you can see when we zoom in, it is a perfect seamless pattern. I did it. And even though it does have that one awkward spot, I think it still looks pretty good. I wish a little bit that I had recognized that awkward spot, but I'm still very happy with the end results. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the overall process and what you think of my pattern, even though it did have that one awkward bald spot that you guys can clearly see I am totally capable of getting over. Oh, okay, guys, we made it. I did it. You did it. We did it together. And if you're still here, you're amazing. Thank you. This is the final product. Huzzah. Now, if you have not yet subscribed, commented, or liked, please do so. Hit that bell notification and I'll see you soon.